You've probably heard it a million times. EVs are the future. EVs are zero emissions. EVs are efficient and EVs are green. But what if I told you those are just sales tactics, slogans being repeated without any thought or research on the life of an electric vehicle? From the moment an electric vehicle is made to when it has reached the end of its life, it's all dirty and outright evil to the environment and cruel to humanity. Contrary to popular opinion, EVs cause more damage to the environment than internal combustion vehicles, which we will now refer to as ICE cars. You need to look at the bigger picture, do your own research, and you'll find some very disturbing answers. The illusion is real. Mainstream media has managed to convince everyone of their narrative, and most people accept it without doing any research to back it up with the facts. In the manufacturing of a lithium-ion battery to power cell phones, laptops, EV battery packs, and nearly every device that uses rechargeable battery technology, 5 main ingredients are needed. These ingredients are cobalt, lithium, cadmium, mercury, and graphite, which is a crystallized form of carbon. First world countries, including the United States and most of the European countries, prohibit the mining of these materials as it is too toxic and environmentally damaging. So they mine these materials in underdeveloped countries for as cheaply as possible. One of the most important components to a lithium-ion battery is cobalt, which we'll be focusing on in this video. In the Southeast Republic of Congo, thousands of women, children, and men scavenge every day to mine cobalt in deadly conditions. Not only are they at risk of dying in the event of a mine collapse, but the cobalt they are mining is extremely toxic and dangerous to their health. They dig out this valuable mineral with their bare hands, with no safety equipment at all. Current battery technologies require cobalt as part of the cathode. Cobalt is in everything. It's an essential part of lithium-ion batteries. Electric car batteries use around 12 kilograms of cobalt per electric vehicle. The mining of cobalt has disastrous effects on the humans mining it and the environment around it. The fantasy being presented about batteries being the better power source for vehicles only highlights the benefits and grossly ignores the damage they cause. Mainstream media companies are guilt-tripping consumers to switch to electric vehicles by painting internal combustion engines as pollutive to the environment. But the destruction and inhumane cruelty caused by mining cobalt is rarely part of the conversation. There is a narrative being pushed by global corporations about moving away from fossil fuels and into green renewable energy. But fossil fuels are in everything. It is literally impossible to move forward in human development without the use of fossil fuels. After the cobalt is extracted cruelly and as cheaply as possible, the cobalt is shipped in polluting diesel tankers to China, Singapore, South Korea, Belgium, and Malaysia. The Chinese government, being the biggest owner of cobalt mines in Congo, most of the cobalt gets shipped to China where it is processed and turned into lithium-ion battery cells. The operation of electric vehicles on a daily basis is less pollutive than an internal combustion engine. The fact is, EVs operate using batteries, which do not produce any noise and emissions due to the lack of an engine. Like your phone, EVs use lithium-ion batteries as their power source and electric motors as their drivetrain. Because of this technology, electric motors deliver instant torque, resulting in substantially faster acceleration. I once saw the only Tesla in South Africa pull up to a traffic light with many other internal combustion cars next to it. And when the light turned green, the Tesla took off so quickly and quietly, it was shocking how slow and noisy the other cars were. It was like the Tesla was from 100 years in the future and all the other cars were old, outdated junk. Now, I'm not against EVs in any way. They represent the next phase of evolution for motor vehicles. But everything comes at a cost. Despite all the technological innovation and advancement they represent, they have massive drawbacks when compared to ICE cars. The cost of an electric vehicle is so high, it's unrealistic to the average consumer to own one. Starting at 1.8 million rands in South Africa, 90% of the market will never be able to afford one. EVs are purely aimed at ultra-wealthy individuals. You can buy a second-hand one for a lot cheaper, but there's a reason why they're cheap. Just like your phone, the more it is charged and used, the more battery degradation occurs, and the less efficient and usable it is. This also applies to EVs. And do you really want a car that fails to transport you from point A to point B because of an old battery? In developed first world economies like the US and certain parts of Europe, the infrastructure for EVs and fast charging networks is available. In underdeveloped economies like South Africa, there are less than 250 active charging stations in a country that cannot deliver power to 60 million people. Even if you are the lucky few that can afford an electric vehicle, Eskom, the only power generation company in South Africa, will always disappoint you and leave you stranded, which is why for most of the underdeveloped parts of the world, EVs are so far away from being reliable everyday transportation. If you value your time, then EVs are not for you. It takes up to 30 minutes to charge an EV in a fast charging network. Compare that to a 3-minute fuel stop in a petrol or diesel powered car, and you immediately see how ridiculous EVs actually are. And if you charge your EV at home, it can be 12 hours or more, which is simply unreasonable. EVs are 10 to 20 years away from being reliable transportation in first world economies, and there's no telling how long it will take for the rest of the world to catch up. In fact, the apocalypse could happen way before EVs are a reality in the entire world. But the biggest problem with EVs comes at the end of their life. Yes, as EVs age and their batteries get old, they lose the ability to hold charge just like your phone. And like your phone, when its battery no longer works, what do you do with it? Let me guess, you just threw it away, didn't you? You didn't recycle it or dispose it safely. you just threw it away. Recycling is still a myth for most waste products in the world. Just like it is cheaper for companies to manufacture new plastics than to recycle used ones, it is cheaper for battery manufacturers to make new batteries than it is for them to recycle old ones. We've been using batteries for more than 20 years, and recycling lithium-ion batteries is still not a reality. Lithium-ion batteries are not fully recyclable. The process of separating all the raw materials safely and efficiently is still not possible. So, when your EV gets old and no longer works, it will end up in some scrapyard piled on top of other EVs with no solutions of what to do with them.
So what happens? They take all these minerals and they melt them together and they put them together like a birthday cake. So there it is done, it's baked. They actually are baked. It's not completely recyclable. Because if I asked you to take the eggs out of a birthday cake, going back to that cake, you'd go, well, I can't, it's everywhere, exactly. So those materials are all blended together.
Internal combustion cars have been around since 1863. And since then, they've come a long way, especially when it comes to recycling them. Most car components are made out of some kind of metal: steel, aluminium, magnesium, or other metal-like materials, which are easy to recycle. At the end of their useful life, internal combustion vehicles have value as source of spare parts, and this has created a vehicle dismantling industry. ICE cars are more recyclable today than EVs, and therefore have less of a negative impact on the environment. There is a whole industry dedicated to scrapping and recycling ICE cars into parts or to be melted to build newer and better cars. With lithium-ion batteries, after usage, most of the components become electronic waste, which further damage the environment. And that is the evil story of electric vehicles. Let me know what you think of EVs in the comments below. This has been an extremely difficult video to make, so if you found it interesting, hit the like button and subscribe.
Later!